Hello everyone and welcome to Calligraphy. Today, we're kicking off a series of Photoshop classes starting with the basics and working our way up to advanced skills. Let's dive in. When you first launch Photoshop, it displays a home screen to help guide you to the files that you want to work with. Now, don't be alarmed if you're new to Photoshop and your home screen doesn't look exactly like the one that you see here. Adobe often updates and customizes the content that appears in this screen. Now, I'm currently recording these videos using the public beta of Adobe Photoshop. Anyone with a Creative Cloud subscription that includes Photoshop can become a part of the Creative Cloud beta program to test apps and share feedback directly with Adobe. If you work for a large company or institution, you may need to check with your IT department to see if it's appropriate for you to install and work with the beta. Throughout this course, I'll be highlighting the differences between the beta and the final shipping version, so you'll have a clear understanding of what to expect. As the product is updated, you might notice some slight changes as potential features are introduced into the beta. This is all part of today's development process, and I'm excited to share these updates with you as we go along. Now, if you've already been working with Photoshop, you'll see your recently opened documents down in this area. For now, I'm going to choose to hide the suggestions. To open a new document from the home screen, we can click on the new file. Across the top of the new document dialog, we'll see a number of different categories, as well as a recent and saved categories. We can click on any one of the categories in order to see the default document presets. We can click to view more presets, and if we scroll down, we'll see a number of templates. The presets and templates that you see here might differ as Adobe updates them. Depending on the monitor that you're on, you can also enlarge this window. In order to see more templates and presets, we'll use the options on the right-hand side of the screen in order to define the size of our new document. I'm going to change the width to 12 and then the height to 8, and we can see that it's set to inches. We can also quickly change the orientation by clicking on one of the icons, set the resolution in either pixels per inch or pixels per centimeter. Choose a color mode as well as a bit depth and the background color. Under the advanced options, I'm going to change the color profile from working to Adobe RGB. We'll cover many of these options in more depth later in the course. Now, if we think we're going to open files using these settings often, we can create a preset. I'll click the downward pointing icon and then we can give it a name. In this case, 8 by 12 inches and 8-bit. Once I save the preset, we can see it under the saved area as well as under recents. If I ever wanted to delete a saved preset, I could simply click on the trash icon. I'll go ahead and open this by just double-clicking on it. And when I do so, Photoshop will open the document and hide the home screen. I'll go ahead and click Got It in order to dismiss this. And then I'm simply going to close the file by clicking on the X icon. Or we could choose the File menu and then select Close. As soon as we close all of our open documents, we will return to the home screen. Now, if I want to open a specific image, I can click Open and then navigate to the file that I want to open. The first time we open a document, Photoshop is going to ask us if we want to open a document from the cloud. I'm going to choose on your computer instead, and then I'm going to navigate to the desktop where I've downloaded the exercise files. I'll choose one, Opening Files, and then double-click on the iceberg.jpg file to open it in Photoshop. Now, Photoshop supports many different file formats, which, again, we'll talk about in depth later in this course. To access the home screen while a file is open, we can click on the home icon, and to hide it, we can click on the Photoshop icon. You can also open files or create a new document by using the File menu and choosing New or Open. Alright, let's go ahead and close this document. And when we return to the home screen, we can see that document is automatically displayed in the Recent Files area. The home screen has additional options. We can click on Learn in order to view Adobe's built-in tutorials. The Generative Workspace option enables us to generate AI to batch create images. Now, this is a feature that you will only see if you're working with the beta. Your files will display any files that you've saved from Photoshop into the cloud as a cloud document. The cloud document is a special file format. They're stored in the cloud and they're optimized for transferring Photoshop files between devices like your desktop and your iPad. We can also see files that have been shared with us. And if you use Lightroom, you can access your files from the home screen. If you're working with Lightroom Classic, you can see the files that you've placed into a collection and synchronize with the cloud, and then open the Smart Preview into Photoshop. We can also see any deleted files. Those are files that you've deleted from the cloud that you can recover for 30 days. We'll cover these options in more in-depth in later chapters, but as you can see, there are several quick and easy ways to create new documents, save new document presets, and open files in Photoshop. While you can choose to open your images using Photoshop, many people prefer to manage their files using a separate application such as Adobe Bridge, Lightroom, or Lightroom Classic. In Photoshop, I can choose File and then Open, or click the Open button on the home screen. We can navigate to different folders and see the contents of those folders, but it's really quite limited. We can't see, for example, more than one folder at a time. We can't add metadata, and we can't add folders or move folders around. I'll go ahead and choose Cancel, and then File, and then Browse in Bridge. If you're not using Bridge to manage your images, then you can skip this video. Bridge is a separate application that you can download and install as part of your Creative Cloud subscription. One of the advantages of using Bridge is that it's a file browser, and it can display many different file types. So if we're working with a logo created in Illustrator or an InDesign document or audio files, even a Word document, we would be able to see all of those documents within Bridge. Here, we can use the Folders panel in order to quickly navigate from one folder to another. Clicking on the folder displays the contents so that we can view multiple images at one time. And if you go to specific folders often, you can choose File and then add the folder to your favorites, and then click on the Favorites tab in order to quickly navigate to that folder. We can also move files by simply dragging and dropping them into another folder. And when we select an image in the content area, you can see it larger and even click in the preview area in order to zoom in to check focus. We can use these icons to create new folders, as well as delete files. And across the bottom, we can change the thumbnail size of our images and use these icons in order to change the different views that Bridge has to offer. We can view and edit information about the image, including the metadata, and we can add keywords within Bridge. We can also use the filter panel in order to quickly find images. We can create collections, and we can even export images directly from within Bridge. Now, in order to open this JPEG file, I'm simply going to double-click on it. And when I close the file, we see the home screen as we did before. If I want to quickly return to Bridge, we can use the File menu or use the keyboard shortcut, Command-Option-O or Control. Alt-O on Windows. If you decide not to open a file from Bridge and you want to simply return to Photoshop, we can click on the boomerang icon in order to return to Photoshop. On Mac, you can also use the keyboard shortcut Command, Tab, or on Windows, it's Alt-Tab to cycle through your open applications and then choose Bridge if it's already running. Now, if you're working with RAW files that have been captured with a digital camera in a RAW file format, then you can take advantage of the Camera Raw plugin when you open an image. This image of the tilted icebergs is a DNG file, which is a type of a RAW file. And if I double-click on it, it opens it up into Adobe Camera Raw. Here, I'll make some quick edits. I'll select the crop tool and then I'll double-click on the Angle tool. In order to automatically straighten this, I'll return to the Edit stack and then choose Auto, and just raise the shadows a little bit more. Under the color section, I'm going to change the white balance from as shot to cloudy. And then, under Effects, I'm gonna add a slight vignette just to darken down the edges a bit. And this is literally just the tip of the iceberg. Camera Raw includes many additional options, including making changes to specific colors and editing individual areas of an image using masking. To see a quick before and after, I'll click on this icon. So there's before and there's after. When we're finished making our adjustments, we can click Open in order to open the file in Photoshop and continue working. For now, I'll simply choose File and then Save. I'm going to save it back into the same folder as a Photoshop document. I'll choose Save and then use Command-Option-O in order to return to Bridge. That'd be Control-Alt-O on Windows. Here we can see the original RAW file with the edits that have been changed, as well as the icons telling me which changes have been made, and we see our newly created Photoshop document. A little tip: you can also open JPEG and TIFF files into Camera Raw to use the same editing features. We would just select the image, and then instead of double-clicking, we would click on the Open in Camera Raw icon. While you won't have the benefits of the non-compressed raw data, you can still use Camera Raw's editing features to make changes to the JPEG or the TIFF file. For now, just know that if you work with several different file types, using a file browser like Adobe Bridge to manage our documents gives us a more visually rich and robust way to navigate and find the images that we want to open into Photoshop. If you're using Lightroom Classic instead of Bridge to manage your images, let's take a moment to see how easy it is to import the exercise files and then open them in Photoshop. If you're not using Lightroom Classic, you can skip this video. First, you'll need to download the exercise files. I've downloaded them to the desktop. Then, I'll move to Lightroom Classic, and I'll choose Import in order to import the files. On the left-hand side, we can navigate to our exercise files folder, and I'll want to be sure to include subfolders. I want them to remain on the desktop, so I'll choose Add, and then I'll click Import. Now, as soon as the files are imported, I can view and select the different folders here in the Folders panel. Now, to open a file in Photoshop, I'll select this raw image, and then choose Photo, Edit In, and edit it in Photoshop. Or we can use the keyboard shortcut Command-E on Mac or Control-E on Windows. If opening raw files, Lightroom Classic will simply apply any changes that you've made in Lightroom Classic's Develop module and then open it into Photoshop. Then we could add our text or layers or adjustment layers. And if we were to save this file, Photoshop would then hand the saved file back to Lightroom Classic, assuming that the Lightroom Classic application was still open, and it would be automatically imported into the catalog. For now, I'm just going to close this file without saving. Now let's return to Lightroom Classic. Now, depending on the file type that you're selecting, you may get different choices. I'll select this PSD file, and again, choose Photo, Edit In, and Edit in Photoshop. Because it's a layered Photoshop document and I want to open the document with all of the layers, I would choose Edit Original. I'll select Edit, and we can see that Lightroom Classic has handed off the file to Photoshop with all of the different layers intact. Alright, let's go ahead and close this again without saving. And just a note before we wrap up, if you're working with your own images, you're going to want to take advantage of the Develop module in Lightroom Classic in order to make your images look their best before opening them in Photoshop. If you're following along using the exercise files provided with the course, we'll simply open the files into Photoshop and start working.